glad you're here.
Oh. That will be revealed later, so I think that there's.
Some things that they have mindset.
Yes, yeah.
With Tampa and then every place else.
You don't say.
Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Can somebody on the Zoom just let me know if you can hear me? Check, check, 1, 2. Can I have somebody on Zoom? Just let me know in the chat. Can you hear me?
I like it.
Mic check on Zoom. Can you hear me? Oh, there's no one there.
How long we're in here. I might have to-
Okay.
But I don't know how long this will be.
Would you like that?
Yeah, because I was hoping to get to, yeah.
Mic check, 1, 2. Can you hear me on Zoom?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's cool, yeah. Yeah, 'cause I expected you.
Morning, everyone. On Zoom, can you hear us? Mic check.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I hear it. I see a yes from Andrew. Andrew, would you mind unmuting and just saying hello real quick so we can make sure we can hear you?
Good morning. So, Andrew Morris from State of Madeira Beach.
Okay, I can't hear you. I'm going to work on that right now. Thank you. Hey, Andrew, would you mind saying one more thing so we can test that?
Okay, trying to figure out why my mic isn't working.
Know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that.
Okay, I can hear you faintly. I'm going to work on turning you up, but thank you.
You don't have to, you don't have to. finish Membership.
Right, I'll start. Welcome everybody to our holiday TMA meeting. And I'll start with wishing everybody here Merry Christmas. Hope your holidays are wonderful. Get to spend some time with family and actually get to slow down a little bit. Take a deep breath before next year hits us all. So, obviously a happy new year to everybody. Just wanted to make sure we have 3 members from Pinellas County here from the TMA. We have 2 right now from Hillsborough that are here. 1 person who is interested in sitting as the 3rd member.
Yes, that's correct. Greg Slater from VIA is attending virtually, and he did notify me in advance that he has a scheduled conflicts.
Okay, fine. So we'll take a vote here in just a minute to allow him to participate as a voting member for this meeting, if that's okay with everybody. And then I don't know if Pasco is.
Where's Pasco?
Yeah, Tania's here also, I think.
No, she is. She's on a phone call. She'll be right in a second.
Who is? I'm sorry.
Tania Gorman.
Executive Director, MPO. Pasco County.
Okay. I just want to make sure I got everybody straight here. Councilmember, nice to meet you.
You too, you too.
And good to have you on board. Okay, so we have 1 from Pasco, 1 voting member from Pasco. Nobody else interested in.
Unless someone's
participating?
online, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we'll open that up in a minute. Is Greg on board? Yeah, there he is at the top. So do we have a motion to allow him to be a voting member for this meeting for TMA?
Yes, I move that Greg Slater be allowed to participate and vote on behalf of Hillsborough TPA.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Greg, we'll get to you in just a little bit. You're going to be able to participate. Just try to get our attention, and you will also be able to vote on items that we bring up for vote during the meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
And do we have folks here that from the public that would like to speak today? Well, I'm seeing 1 head nod. Is there a particular item that you want to speak to?
Consulting. Study.
The item 4?
Yes.
Okay. Can you wait for that? Okay, so we'll make sure. Otherwise, I was going to let you go now. We'll wait on that. Anybody else that wants to speak? I think we have 1 online comment that Cal can read. But we may want to see if anybody else from online. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we had a comment from Andrew Morris. The comment reads, the Gandy Bridge Replacement Project, the Gandy Boulevard Overpass Project for Brighton Bay Boulevard and San Martin Boulevard, and various other Gandy Boulevard related improvement projects should be on the regional priority list. Gandy Boulevard is a strategic intermodal system corridor. It is a hurricane evacuation route, and it provides an alternative to I-275 for regional travel to and from the beaches of Pinellas County, Largo, Seminole, Pinellas Park, and St. Petersburg to Tampa. These road projects should also be coordinated with other multimodal improvements, including upgrading the PSTA Route 100X into a frequent regional express bus with bus on shoulder lanes and building multi-use trails via the new Gandy Bridge. The annual average daily traffic counts for Gandy Boulevard and the Gandy Bridge are higher than what they were pre-2020, especially with all the growth in the Gateway area in South Tampa. Upgrading Gandy Boulevard and replacing the bridge needs to be a regional priority.
Thank you. Is there anybody that's online that's let us know that they want to speak?
If you're on Zoom and want to make a public comment, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay. And I was remiss in not mentioning historical perspective on today being 12/6 and December 6th, and Pearl Harbor Day obviously is indelled in many people's minds who were alive and obviously participated defending our country in World War II, but obviously a huge day, and certainly hoping that our kids at least are hearing about it today. It's kind of the 9/11 of the, 7 or 8 decades ago. So in any event, thoughts and prayers to family members who still grieve their people that they lost. All right, we will go on to, well, let's go ahead and just introduce ourselves for the good. All those members who are on here for the TMA, please introduce yourselves. We'll start at the Planning Commissioner.
Councilmember Matt Murphy from City of Newport Richey, Chair of the MPO.
Good morning, Gina Driscoll, St. Petersburg City Council and Chair for Pinellas.
Richie Floyd from St. Petersburg City Council and a member of Fort Pinellas.
My name's Dave Eggers. I'm also on Forward Pinellas, Pinellas County, obviously, and sit on the County Commission.
Hi, Temple Terrace Mayor Andy Ross. Good morning, everybody, and Hillsborough TPO.
No, you.
Oh, okay. Lynn Hurtak, Tampa City Council.
And
Greg Slater, Executive Director of the Hillsborough Expressway Authority, here virtually. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Welcome again. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with item 2, which is approval of the September meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Comments, questions, corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3, Johnny Wong, presentation on the major regional priorities.
This is. Good morning, TMA members. Johnny Wong, Staff Director of the Hillsborough TPO. This morning, I'm going to present to you the 2024 major regional priorities of the TMA. We are proposing adding some new projects to that list, and I will cover those in turn. Who are we? Well, you all are already familiar with the jurisdictions that comprise the TMA. We are a tri-county region. Collectively, we try to come together to select major regional projects that will enhance transportation around the region. You all also already know that Tampa Bay is one of the fastest growing regions in the state and across the nation. Regional coordination is essential because in addition to the millions of residents that we have and seasonal residents and visitors, they all are trying to get around our region to access our wonderful destinations, but they don't know where our jurisdictional boundaries begin and end. And it's our responsibility to ensure that they continue not knowing where those jurisdictional boundaries begin and end. We submit this list of TMA regional priorities first for your approval. If approved, we will submit them to the SCTPA, the larger regional body comprising first the TMA, Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough. The larger regional body of the Suncoast Transportation Alliance is Citrus Hernando, Polk, Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Sarasota Manatee. Once we have approved these lists of regional priorities, we then work with FDOT to try to game them for advancement. And there are numbers on this slide, but it's not really a sequential process. As we're working with our partners in District 7, we submit our own individual MPO priorities. They also take a look at the major regional priorities, and of course are informed by the objectives of the state and the nation. Now I will take
a brief detour and talk about some of the major regional priorities from each of our respective MPOs, beginning with Pasco. One of the SCTPA's priorities, which is also a priority of the Pasco MPO, is the US 41 SR 54 intersection. For that project, right-of-way is currently funded. In Pinellas, a number of regional priorities. I-275 from 38th Avenue to 4th Street North has construction funded on it. Thank you to our district. I-275 from I-375 to 38th Ave North has right-of-way funded, and a 4th Street Trail to Howard Franklin Bridge has construction funded. Forgive me for not covering all of these, but I'll keep it brief because you're going to see this again at the next meeting. And of course, Hillsborough's existing priorities, which are regionally significant. Kudos to DOT for working with us to get construction funded on the South Coast Greenway, Gulf Coast Trail, I-275 frame project, which is a traffic ops project that will enhance traffic flow without the need for widening. And recent additions that were made last year, Hart Heavy Maintenance Facility and the Florida Ave Tampa BRT project. This group has been very successful collaborating with DOT to move these projects forward, as well as partnering with them to submit federal discretionary grant applications. Some of our major successes that we've had recently are the Sunrunner in St. Pete, connecting downtown to the beaches, the I-75 interchange project. Oh, forgive me, I'm getting some pop-ups on the screen. I-75 interchange at Overpass Road, and the Gateway Express. Our funded regional priorities, which are in a state of development, not yet complete, but they will be our future successes once those projects are have their ribbons cut, so to speak. The Howard Franklin Bridge replacement is under construction and soon to be complete. The I-75 interchange at Big Bend project down in South Hillsborough County. The I-275 SR60 West Shore interchange is funded through phases 1 and 2, still seeking funding for phase 3. I-275 safety and operational improvements at formerly known as Malfunction Junction. That interchange has improved dramatically over the years, and we anticipate it'll continue to get better. And I-275 express lanes from 38th Ave North to 4th Street North. The list of major regional priorities for the TMA, and I mentioned that we have a new addition at the bottom of the list. I-75 interchange at Gibsonton has right-of-way funded that needs construction funding. I-275 express lanes from 375 to 38th Ave needs to be completed. The West Shore interchange phase 3, as I already mentioned. SR 54 US 41 intersection has right-of-way funded seeking construction. Regional rapid transit in the I-275 corridor is a priority of both the Pasco and Pinellas MPOs. My MPO has not taken a position on that recently. Regional passenger rail from Tampa to Orlando. The larger regional group passed a resolution earlier this year to be supportive of that project. You may know it as Brightline, but it's really agnostic as to who operates that service. Hart Heavy Maintenance Facility, Florida Ave Tampa Street Bus Rapid Transit Project, and the new addition, which is seeking your approval, is the I-275 widening from Hillsborough to Bears Avenue.
Johnny, before you go on further, could I just point out, if you go back to the last presentation, that the regional passenger rail from Tampa to Orlando was part of that unanimous resolution that all 10 MPOs in the I-4 corridor endorsed our May meeting. I forget what meeting that was, but it was the regional joint meeting with the Central Florida MPO Alliance. So that resolution, I think, was included in a prior packet of this body, but happy to share that with anybody who's interested.
Yeah, thanks for that additional detail, Whit. And I know that my MPO, Polk, and Metro Plan are partnering on submitting a grant application for that, or a priority application now. The next steps for this group are to approve the new addition to the 2025 list of TMA top priorities, recognizing the phasing changes that have occurred this year as a result of funding moving forward. Transmit that list to the SCTPA at the next meeting to be added to the major regional priorities list. And then we'll work with DOT to transmit these priorities, see if we can get those funded. That's it for me. The recommended action for you all is to approve the list, with the additional project of 275 widening from Hillsborough to Bears.
Council.
I'll take any questions.
Yes, and I'm gonna, of course, object to the city of Tampa, which wrote, the city council wrote a letter with all 7 of us agreeing that we do not want to widen the interstate through our city. So I'm gonna respectfully decline to vote for this, and I'm going to encourage others who are interested in a partnership with Tampa to do similar.
Are there any other questions for me?
Hang on one sec before,
Yes.
Any other questions? So let's talk about what Councilwoman just brought up. So when, is that a new one on our list? It's something that we're taught that we want to put on the list, or is it one that's been on the list that we need to, from her perspective, take off the list?
Yes, Commissioner, that is a new addition. It is not, or it is a new proposed addition. It is not currently on the list. The historical context of that project is that it was formerly on Hillsborough TPO's list of priority projects about 4 years ago. It was subsequently removed at a TIP hearing in June of 2021, I believe. And this past year, my board made a motion to add it back to the list of priority projects. So it is a Hillsborough TPO priority, not currently funded.
It's been off and on. And that was done this year?
My TPO voted in June to add it back to the list of priority projects as a widening project.
Anybody from Hillsborough TMA that has any comments other than Councilwoman's attack on this?
This was,
Go ahead, Mayor.
this was on, as Johnny stated, this was on the Hillsborough's long-term transportation plan for a long time. I don't know how it got on that list before I was. This was on there. It was, as Johnny said, removed at the request of one of our commissioners in 2021 at the TIP meeting. There was a lot of discussion about it at the time. Those opposed and in favor of removing it, but it was removed. And through the same process this year, it was returned to the list at a TIP meeting in the same forum. So as Councilwoman Pertak says, Tampa is opposed to it, but the Hillsborough TPO is not opposed to it. We think it's a vital project.
And do you remember what that vote was?
Yes, it was everyone who represents the city of Tampa voting against it, including county commissioners, except for one. And then all of the non-electeds voted for it, and everyone who doesn't represent the city of Tampa voted for it.
So roughly
I believe it was an 8-7 vote.
8-7 vote. Yes, so.
Yeah, I just wanted a couple of points. One, the project is included in the SIS cost feasible needs plan. So this isn't a statewide, in other words, every MPO creates their plan. And then the state has a SIS plan that covers the strategic intermodal system roadways, which include our interstates and a lot of our major arterials that provide regional or statewide interconnectivity. And so it's in that plan. The TMA is obviously different than individual MPOs because we look at regional impacts as opposed to individual. And so what I would just encourage is it's been shown in all the models that we've done that this provides a critical link for the regional connectivity, especially between Pasco and Hillsborough County. And so we do see it as a regional need. I just want to point out that it is in our overall SIS plan as a need and cost feasible. It's not funded for construction at this point in the 5-year plan, but it's in our longer plan.
To your point about each of the MPOs individually, have the MPOs individually taken positions on this, you know?
Well, obviously, well, so like Hillsborough would take a position. I don't know that Pinellas or Pasco would weigh in because it's physically not within. And that's kind of the role of the TMA. If there was a regional MPO, it would be a regional MPO type of a view for the regional connectivity. The lack of a regional MPO, of course, is the TMA coming together as to look at the broader picture. And then DOT takes on a stronger role in regional connectivity when there's not a regional MPO. And so that's why the TMA and the DOT would look at things, for instance, not necessarily from a parochial, this is what it is in this particular location, but how does it interrelate to the entire region? And when you talk to folks like the port, you talk to the airport, you know, they use that as a freight corridor. It's a constrained freight corridor. It's going to cause a lot of issues in the future if it's not widened. And that's why we have it in our plan as something that we support to provide that regional mobility.
And with that widening, would it naturally include linkage plans from both sides of the interstate that's being widened?
Yeah, we would, like we're doing on the current plan, if you look at the current project that's widening from the downtown interchange up to north of Hillsborough Avenue, what we did is all of the areas where roads go underneath Hillsborough MLK, we've widened them out to provide very wide sidewalks and improve the intersections below it and things like that to provide connectivity. We've even worked with the city to provide public art opportunities underneath there to make it, you know, a better crossing underneath and in the adjacent intersections. This is actually taking it from that point up to Bears, where you do start to see north of Bears, you get a very long stretch that's got no interchanges or anything. And so the friction up there is not so good and not so bad like it is to the south. The nice thing about the 275 to Bears project is it requires no right of way. We already have all the right of way we need. There was some discussion. I think there was some difference of opinion in how you describe the needs for a roadway within the existing right of way. I think there was concern that even though we're not going to, for instance, move the right of way lines outward into communities, the road itself would widen within that existing right of way. The other thing we would do as part of that is we would put noise walls along the entire stretch, which has been something that's been requested by the communities. And just based on the way the federal rules work and everything, we can't just go in and put noise walls unless something is done that's going to increase the noise to the surrounding community. And so this would allow us to put the noise walls in with federal money. Otherwise, we'd have to get the MPO to designate money to just build noise walls with no other improvements. So there are some folks obviously who don't like the fact that the road would get wider within the existing right of way, but I think there would be some other benefits in terms of the noise walls and all, and it certainly would be a benefit to regional connectivity. It may have local impacts especially from the perspective of those that live maybe near the road, but from a regional standpoint, it would certainly provide for a stronger freight and passenger network.
But to your point about affecting the folks that live there, it's the right of way is not increasing. No, the roads are getting bigger, so maybe the cars are getting closer to the sides. So therefore the need for the walls, for the barricade wall, I'm assuming that's one of those 30-foot high or 20-foot, whatever the height.
Yeah, it's different heights depending on the topography of the, but the way the federal rules work is that if it's an existing condition, they won't pay for you to put in mitigation. But if you do something that changes it such that it may increase, then you can go in and do the mitigation and they'll pay for it. And so and DOT has there's a lot of areas around the state that are in that situation that it probably meets the requirements for a noise wall, but because it was a pre-existing condition, it doesn't get mitigated by federal monies. But if we do something to the road, I think the road, some of the widening would be to the middle of the road, but some of it would be to the outside. So you could see anywhere from 6 to 12 feet where the road would actually get closer to the existing right-of-way line, but you'd still have 30 to 40 feet between the road and the right-of-way line.
And then the wall.
And the wall.
So if it's not on the plan, how does that affect anything in the coming year?
Well, because it's in the cost feasible plan, and we've already gotten to the point where we've had a record of decision, we could conceivably move forward with the project anyway. But we typically try to make sure that we have the support of the surrounding TPOs, and a TMA would be another factor in that because it's looking at the regional mobility.
From my, again, I think there was conversation, I don't know if there still is, from Tampa about doing something to the interstate and making it a non-interstate venue. I don't know if that ever, if that
There was one time discussion about a boulevard concept.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that hasn't been brought up in quite a while.
Again, from a regional perspective, there was no interest on our side, but so I'll just go back to you, Councilwoman, again, the rationale for the request.
The rationale is basically kind of the reason that we already are talking about in terms of the difficulty of Tampa getting on board with this. Tampa, and just talking about regionalism, period. Tampa, yesterday, Dr. Wong, pardon, came to Tampa City Council and council made it pretty clear that it's not something that we can go forward with the study, but that right now this particular council is not really interested in regionalism. And so it's I knew how they felt, but I was kind of shocked at the veracity. I thought I was surprised that some of the folks who generally are regionalists don't believe in this as a regional entity. So
Don't believe in, what is this?
the merging the MPOs.
Oh, merging.
But the interesting thing is that, and we had a TPO meeting on Tuesday where one city council member wasn't available and I was participating remotely. And I chose just to listen. And the way that our TPO is trying to get around the city of Tampa voting on this was very illuminating. The way they would like to go to the mayor without going to council. It just kind of goes along to the disrespect that the city of Tampa feels. But I feel like with this body, I was thinking about this on the drive over here. What ways could the city of Tampa work with Pasco and Pinellas to come up with some agreements that could strengthen this and make us more willing to participate? Because obviously we've tried with our TPO and that doesn't work. So my thought coming here was and going forward, what are some of the things that Tampa could work out with Pasco and Pinellas to strengthen our ability? Because right now we are both at the table and on the table. And we are always on the table. We are eaten every single time. And so I'm hoping that what we can do when we're talking about this joint collaboration is to consider us as a city and because it sounds like some of the stuff that Pinellas is doing is stuff that would be interesting to the city of Tampa, like transit and things like that. But really just being able to be listened to, and how can we guarantee in a regional MPO that we're going to be heard and not be on the table constantly, if that makes any sense. So I would ask in a measure of good faith to simply not approve this particular addition and work forward over the next year with this consultant to figure out ways that Tampa can find a way that we find that regionalism would work for us.
I'm listening to you. I promise. I'm not sure I'm getting all of that. I'm still not sure. I understand the discussion about the regionalism, and just for clarification, your council was talking in a united fashion against adding this item or
Both.
both items? Okay.
Yeah, we wrote a letter proposing this to our TPO, which was ignored. And then yesterday, Dr. Wong came to talk to us about regionalism, and I believe he sent out an email to everyone on this board that included basically our positions and including a video of us speaking. So
Councilwoman, the recap of the city council presentation I made yesterday was not circulated to this body, but I had submitted that to my TPO board members. And I think Councilwoman Hurtak's recollection of the events is accurate. Prior to my TPO voting to support this project in its LRTP and TIP, the city of Tampa did take a unanimous action to oppose that. As the two city council, well, there are 3 city council representatives that sit on the Hillsborough TPO board. And I can recall that at the June hearing, 2 of them voted against this project, but ultimately that vote did not go in the city of Tampa's favor, so to speak. So my board has approved this project as our priority. And because it's a regional facility, we are now recommending it to this body to adopt as a regional priority.
In your conversation, I understand although I don't understand, but I understand the separate discussion about the regional efforts that we're spending a lot of time on and trying to reflect not only our individual counties, but also state interests. But I still don't understand why that you're so against this project based on what's going on. Not because you're upset with the TPO or that you don't like regionalism, but this facility.
This facility will widen and actually just add more congestion. So it's not just the lanes. After people get off, we're adding more congestion into the neighborhoods. By and large, FDOT, when they have expanded in Tampa Heights, has not been an honest actor. Things that the neighborhoods have asked for, they haven't gotten. So there's not a level of trust there that what they say they're going to do is actually going to happen. Sound walls, while they say it's something, as someone who was a neighborhood leader in that neighborhood before I became a council member, I never hear about sound walls. What I hear about is pollution and extra cars. I don't hear about noise. I mean, sound walls aren't going to help with pollution. Sound walls aren't going to help with additional traffic. And
I'm not sure what delayed traffic in traffic jams does for pollution either, frankly. I mean, it adds a lot. So I don't know that adding a few cars that are moving more rather than sitting still or having traffic jams. I'm not an environmentalist that can compare, environmental engineer that can compare that level of pollution. So
there's something called induced demand that basically shows that when you add a lane, you just simply add more cars. And within a few years, we would still have the traffic. But the thing is, this isn't even going to be built for at least 10 years. And it's going to cost, our estimate, or the estimates we were given were $500 million. And if you want to do something with $500 million, we've got plenty of projects that we can work on that will actually move the city forward. We were promised that as part of, if there was an expansion, they were going to help fund a BRT. That has gone away. So basically the promises that FDOT has given to this community and communities surrounding it regarding the expansion of the interstate have not been followed.
yes.
I can just add, first of all, I don't appreciate the comment that we were not an honest actor. We've invested over $50 million into Tampa Heights as a result of the project we're doing. Not the project, but all the bikeways, the intersection improvements, the complete streets projects, the underpasses. Over $50 million has been invested into that area. So to say we're not doing anything, we're actually doing way more than we even said we were going to do in the beginning because the cost increases have gone up. The BRT is not a DOT pulling that project. It's the city and the county not coming up with local funds to support the BRT. We're ready on our part. We have been. So to say we're not participating in that is untrue. Induced demand, go to Pasco County and look what's being built up there. It's being induced by just people wanting to move to our region. and they can't afford to live in Hillsborough County. They're building up in Pasco County. The traffic volumes are gonna grow. No matter what you do, you add a lane or you don't, the traffic volume and the demand is going to grow. You're right that we won't solve congestion by adding an additional lane, but what we can do is we can move more traffic within the footprint than we can now. In other words, you won't have the higher backups. You'll move traffic, maybe in somewhat congestion, but you'll have more ability to move them within the interstate corridor, which is where we want the longer regional trips to be, as opposed to on the arterial roadways and through the neighborhoods. So a lot of the things that you're saying there, quite honestly, are not true. I'm not gonna say you're not being honest. Maybe you just don't know. But we have invested tremendous amount of money and we have come through on all the promises we've made to the Heights. That is the truth.
Awesome.
Councilwoman Driscoll.
Thank you. Secretary Gwynn, thank you for that clarification. So just to be clear, that particular project, what you're saying is that you will increase the capacity without physically widening or the road.
The right-of-way lines will stay exactly where, the way I said it, if you picture building, you have a house. You have a house and it's 50-foot wide on a 100-foot lot. You got 25 feet on either side of your lot. And you decide to do an expansion of your house and you build it out an additional 10 feet on each side. Well, now you have a 70-foot wide, but you're still in your 100-foot. You didn't buy your neighbor's
Right.
property to widen your house. You're
Right.
just using the property you already own a little more efficiently to
Okay,
provide you with the additional house that you need because you got a bigger family now or something.
right, right. So it's encouraging to know that you're working within what you already have. Regarding the noise mitigation, can you give us an idea of the sources of that information that you received from the community? Was that from a public comment period
Yeah.
or?
So we've had various times where people have come to public meetings, some were in the Heights. Others where they said that they would like to have noise walls. In some cases, they wanted it more for the visual impact. They didn't want to have to see the road, but the noise impacts as well. And so in the portion that we're building right now, they're building noise walls through that whole area. And we've already heard from people that have said that it's really mitigated the noise in those areas. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. To take it further to the north, we would have to be able to have a need to show that something has changed. Because if we go to federal government and say, we want to put noise walls, say it's been like that for 50 years, you can't, we're not going to pay for it. But if we
Right.
widen the road, even within the existing right of way, the federal government will pay for that to be built.
Right, and so if this isn't done and you need to, and you wanted to just do the noise mitigation, the feds aren't going to pay for it. So what are the chances that another government entity might pay for it?
If the MPO wanted to prioritize some of their funds to do it, it's been a state policy statewide that we don't do those types of mitigations with the SIS money, and in part because if we did, there's so many places in the state, we'd become the Department of Noise Walls. Because you can't really just pick and choose where you're gonna do that. Every
Right.
community would feel that they should get it. And so there's just been a policy statewide that if we follow the federal guidelines. And that's just how we've been for a long time. But MPOs could prioritize that and use their funding to do it if they want.
Right, but that probably wouldn't be the wisest choice, given that we need to increase capacity through that area. And like with many other projects, you can incorporate other smaller projects or ancillary projects to go with something larger like this. And being able to access that federal funding in order to do it.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Thank you. And then if you don't mind going back to this slide with the list of projects.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I just wanted to make sure that we've been stuck on one particular project and it's new, and that's understandable. I just wanted to express my strong support for the second one, the express lanes from I-375 to 38th Avenue North. that one can't happen fast enough as someone who gets stuck in that area as it is a bottleneck. So I appreciate and support that one. The others are other projects that we've talked about before, and I don't see any issues that we would have or that I would have on that list. So, but thank you for working with us to develop the list and for providing so much insight when we need to take a deeper dive into something. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Yes, Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I just want to submit to this board that this board does not serve as the appeals court for the Hillsborough County TPO. It is not the role of this board to assess the wisdom of whether that vote should have been taken the way it was taken, no more than we would do for Pinellas or Pasco, or, I mean, the decision to be made this morning with this body is this project a regionally significant project that should be on the regional priority list? The only reason for pulling a particular project from our Hillsborough list would be that we don't agree that this is a regionally significant priority. So
The only thing, and I don't disagree mostly with what you're saying, the only thing that I'm thinking is that it is a newly re-added to the project. I didn't even know it was an issue again, and it's being discussed right now. I mean, I tend to favor anything that adds regional movement. And those areas leaving Hillsborough County are also leaving Pinellas County. So they're critically important from my perspective, but it is a relatively new one from I don't know that we've talked about.
but back to my point, if I might finish, Chair, is that the Hillsborough TPO has decided that this is a regionally significant and important project to Hillsborough County. It's not the role of this body to say, well, you know, did Hillsborough decide correctly or not? We don't do that for Pasco or Pinellas. The role of this body is to say, well, Hillsborough, you might think it's regionally significant, but DOT is telling us it's not, or there's no evidence that it is. You want to add a new project, but we're not really sure it's regionally significant. And I would challenge you, if you've heard anything today that would suggest it's not regionally significant. And so I am sensitive, and I'm not trying to disrespect the city of Tampa or Councilmember Hurtak, but this was the vote of the Hillsborough TPO. And 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I was on the losing side of this vote when it was removed. It's not a new project, and strictly, it's a return project. So I didn't come to this body in 2022 and argue that you should restore it. I mean, that's not the purpose of this board.
And my only thing is, then why are we here? Why isn't this an email? Seriously, why are we bothering to approve something? If we're just gonna take what all the others say and just be like, sure, whatever. I really hate meetings that should be emails. And if we're just voting, if we're just supposed to be a rubber stamp, then why are we here?
I don't think this is, I think we're having probably 20 minutes of conversation in an hour meeting that has only 10 minutes left. I don't consider that just blowing it off. I mean, we are talking through it right now. We're having dialogue. We've listened to what you had to say, and we're listening to what the TPO has to say. And so we're thinking
No,
about it.
I know, I'm responding to Mayor Ross, not to you.
Any other comments from Pasco? Any thoughts down there, Commissioner, or?
I mean, it sounds like either way, it's something that's regionally significant and going to be moving forward. So I don't really think whether we do or not, it's still going to go through because it's prudent. So, I mean, and I agree with the mayor and saying that this is, you know, can't really debate what other boards have done. That's their decision. And if it's regionally significant, then we should act on it as it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the point that we're gonna get to, is if we each individually think it's regionally significant, then we want to keep it or add it back to the list. And if we don't think it is, then we as a group don't support that is, I just want to make sure that I'm trying to frame this right. This is like the way you initially started the conversation is like, well, this is an anti-Tampa vote. And I totally 100% disagree with you. It is not an anti-Tampa vote. And to have that attitude about a project that is, again, it's not about hurting Tampa. And again, I'm not going to get into how it affects Tampa because you're speaking for Tampa. Any other comments or thoughts and any appetite for a motion, please? To add those projects to our funded priorities.
So question is,
Yeah.
would this be a motion to approve the list as presented?
Yes,
Okay,
if that's what you feel, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 priority projects as listed.
Is there a second? Well, I will second it. If you're not, I don't like to second since I'm chairing the meeting, so if you'll second, then you'll second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or thoughts before we vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
So we have, what's up, and I don't know how. Yeah, let's check to see if online, Mr. Slater has a vote.
That was an I vote. Thank you.
He said aye. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-2. Did I count correctly? 5-2 is favor of adding those to the list of the regional priority.
Yes, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wong. Let's move on to item 4, which is reviewing the regional scope and timeline. Whit?
Good morning, board members. I'm Whit Blanton with Ford Pinellas. We're back to you today with a proposed scope of services that's been revised from our September meeting based on the comments and discussion that you had then. This is a scope for a management and legal consultant that will help staff work through the remaining issues, and there are quite a few remaining issues of the potential merger of the 3 MPOs. The issues that we're seeking to address with this scope of services include such as whether a regional MPO should be independent or should be hosted. If it's independent, where would that source of revenue from local funding come from? How would the board be structured? We've made some progress on developing consensus around that, but we would need to affirm that. How would staff be structured? How would our partnerships with land use agencies, with local governments, with bicycle pedestrian advisory committees and citizen advisory committees, how would that all work? There are many permutations of MPOs across the country. In Florida, we have a set of statutes in the state, unlike a lot of other states, that do provide some guardrails and parameters for how MPOs are structured, but there's still a fair amount of wiggle room. There's not a single MPO in the state of Florida that operates exactly identical. So this scope of services would provide expertise that would help us with human resources, IT, all those aspects that would help us develop a proposal. We're not at this point with this scope approving a regional MPO, just to be clear about that. It is a step in the process, and an up or down vote on a regional MPO would come probably not for another year or two. The changes that we made in response to the September meeting was to incorporate a phasing plan to this so that there are logical stop points along the way that we can bring back to the TMA Leadership Group and the respective MPOs, as well as public input before proceeding to the next phase. And we've left it kind of open to whatever consultant we end up hiring to suggest those breakpoints, because from a staff perspective, we didn't see a real logical way to do that, but we think the consultant can come in and identify that more clearly. So that's the scope of work. I'd like to bring Sarah Caper up, who will be the project manager for this effort. The Hillsborough TPO, we've agreed that they would procure the consultant and be the primary project manager.
Thank you, Whit. Good morning. TMA Leadership Group members. As Whit mentioned, we have been thinking about how we might procure this consultant.
I'm sorry. I just am having a hard time hearing. you.
Sure. Is this better?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we've been thinking through how we might procure a consultant in compliance with the Hillsborough TPO's procurement practices and have a schedule drafted for you included in your agenda packet. We would start after this body takes action on the scope of services. We would go through the agreement process with the Florida Department of Transportation so that the TPO can receive the funding. We would also at the same time be finalizing our procurement package to go out for a request for proposals. We anticipate that that process would take about 1 to 2 months to get everything finalized out on the street. During the release of the procurement, there would be a notice, question, and answer period. The proposals would be due about 5 to 6 weeks after it's released. At that time, staff from all 3 MPOs would come together and provide a review and recommendation for this body. We would come back to you, the TMA Leadership Group, either at your May meeting or a special meeting over the summer in June or July, depending on the timing, for your recommendation. We would take that recommendation to the Hillsborough TPO for approval and negotiations because the funding is going to the Hillsborough TPO with FDOT. The Hillsborough TPO would be asked to act on that in summer of 2025 as soon as this body takes action. We would negotiate the agreement and execute that with a consultant and issue a notice to proceed. We are looking at that happening in late summer or fall of 2025. We feel like this is a conservative schedule, so it's certainly possible for that to happen sooner if we're able to release things sooner, and it would all be contingent on the action today. And I'd be happy to take any questions you might have on the schedule.
Okay, and we'll get to your comment just 1 minute, okay? Any questions on the board? Ma'am, you have 3 minutes. Please go up there, introduce yourself, and
thank you. I'll try not to go over my 3 minutes, so I hope you'll indulge
I'll
me.
raise my hand when you've got a minute, so
Thank
you'll
you.
have a sense of that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My remarks, my name's Susan Swift. I'm a planner. I'm here on my own time. I work for an architecture and engineering firm here, and I've been a planner here in this region for 40 some odd years. I'm here to speak in support of hiring a consultant to do this study. The magnitude of it is not something that WIT staff can do in its spare time. And I would think you'd want an unbiased opinion and an objective resource for this study. But as I said, I've been a planner here for 40 years. I've always believed that a regional MPO made sense. Those of you who don't know me, I'm a City of Tampa resident. I agree with almost all of Councilwoman Hurtak's positions, but this one's a little different. I used to be the planning and zoning director for the City of Tampa. I have and Pinellas Park. I've lived and worked on both sides of the bay. And I think a regional MPO is the only way to be forward-thinking and to have a long-term solution to our transportation problems. A couple of, I think the earlier discussion is an indicator of why you need a regional commission. And I won't go into all the points that I agree with that point to needing a regional MPO. There's a lot of layers, too many layers, and you all spend a lot of administrative time, a lot of your personal time as elected officials. And it's even a challenge to move through those layers for citizens who are either in favor of or opposing those projects. It's a huge process. In addition to things that you've heard about the benefits of a regional MPO, it'll compete for better for funding, it'll plan for projects better. I think you had to look at how our geography is so much different than other places. The Bay is a barrier to to cheap alternative roadways. Every project's expensive, every project is major. It's not like another region that you can just widen a road over here and you'll have an alternate path around things, or you build a new road. Our geography dictates that we need a regional MPO. And I strongly recommend that if you want our economic ability and success and our livability to continue with our huge phenomenal growth, then I really urge that the only long-term solution is a regional MPO. And thank you.
Well, that was at 3 minutes and 1 second, so.
Wow, that's really
Thank you for being here and your time, man.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's no additional questions. Do I have a motion on the floor for consideration?
Move to approve the scope of work.
A second, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Can I make a quick comment before we leave this topic?
Before we voted, but.
No,
Yeah,
I
go
know.
ahead, Go ahead.
I don't want to do this if everybody's not in agreement, but I'd like to ask the 3 MPO directors to discuss creating like a frequently asked question document regarding the merger. Because I don't even know how many elected bodies we have between the 3 counties that have to, and there's a lot of confusion. We hear information in these meetings about, the money between counties can't be commingled. They can't go from Hillsborough to Pasco to Pinellas. So your intra-county money is secured, but there's a lot of questions people have, the public and council members and commissioners across the 3 counties. It would be nice to have a document that provides the answers to these that can be updated as this process goes on.
I think that's a great
And it could be posted on all 3 MPO's websites, and so everybody has access to current information.
We're spending a lot of time here. A lot of new
Right.
people get on board.
So I don't,
Yeah, I think that's great.
I don't even we don't need a motion. I guess if there's somebody that objects to that.
I'm just looking at my counterpart, Tania and Johnny. I don't see, where's Johnny?
Thank you. I didn't mean to-
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Yep, we'll do it.
All right, let's move on quickly to item 5 and Big B. Yeah, Big B. I'm not gonna try to tell you to do it rather quickly, but we were kind of tight on time. I apologize that you got that short.
This may be of interest to the broader SCTPA as well.
I recognize the time constraint here and I'll move as fast as I can. So to Whit's point, my presentation today really presents an opportunity to regional MPOs and regional local agencies, counties, cities, and all, through the USDOT. It's a program called the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator out of USDOT's Build America Bureau office. The city of Tampa recently won a grant to stand up this office locally and regionally for a regional purpose. And we've partnered with the Tampa Bay Partnership to do so. So I'm just going to provide a perspective of how the city looks at it relative to our challenges, what the opportunities are, and they can be translated to respective counties and cities as well. So real quick, our mission, our mandate that Mayor Castor has put forth to the city is those 5 areas: transportation, development, or better development rather, housing, attainability, affordability, workforce, and sustainability and resilience. That's kind of the lens through which we look at it. For transportation, our goal is to really address housing and transportation as they tend to be the same problem from an affordability standpoint. And to that end, that's what we're working towards. That's what's relevant to this discussion. Tampa is expensive. Our region is expensive. We know that. But per the latest data from the Center for Neighborhood Technology, here are the numbers on housing. Those housing numbers may actually be higher, but 32% in housing, 21% in transportation, primarily because we're car-centric. So if we want to solve or address the issue of affordability, transportation is the second largest item on household budgets, median household budgets anyways. Tampa is growing rapidly, as is the region, no doubt about it. In the next 25 to 30 years, we expect about 200,000 plus more jobs on top of what we have right now. The map in front of you shows the airport to the west, downtown and Ybor to the east. Those are, of course, the two largest employment centers. That's where we expect a lot of these jobs to come into play. So that is our jobs corridor, if you will. Excuse me. This is also a corridor of opportunity for us to foster smarter development. And so we aspire to increase density, reduce the need for cars, and that means increase opportunities for active transportation and transit within this jobs corridor, and focus on expanding, if needed, parking capacity to the west, to the east, and to the north, where we expect regional traffic to come from. From a resilience and sustainability standpoint, this is higher ground. So this is where we also aspire to bring in housing along with these transportation connections. So this program, and we'll touch upon it in a second, makes funding available to leverage publicly owned assets, real assets, develop them to the cities or whichever public agency owns them, their priorities. So that could mean housing, affordable housing in the city's case, and co-locate that housing where the jobs are going to be. Again, that addresses other issues as well. The airport has indicated, sir.
So I know that the BRT, the HART BRT was in the original application. Is that no longer in the program?
It is. You see the green line up from the red line here?
Okay, that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
wrong side of the interstate.
So yes, that's part of the application. So our safe streets. So is the connection from the airport to downtown and the streetcar extension itself. So that's the overall vision. That's where we're coming from. We know the region's growing even faster than we are. The success of Pasco County with both population growth and development that's happening, St. Pete, and then certainly South County, where we expect a majority of the traffic coming to Tampa coming from. The big consideration for us is this. Of those 200,000 plus jobs in the next 30 years, only 20% will be occupied by people that live in the city. 80% will be commuting to Tampa. So it matters to us what decisions the region makes, and should matter to the region what decisions we make. That's where regional synergy and working as a region is critical. That is why we have this opportunity. That's why the mayor took on that grant to establish this office as well. Ultimately, our vision of a thriving community includes more transit than we have today, safer streets, and co-locating housing and schools to where the jobs are for effecting better sustainable outcomes. So let's look at the program real quick. This is a regional entity. It will be housed within the Tampa Bay Partnership. The goal is to establish an MSA-wide vision. Again, without the regional, and it's in the name, this doesn't work. The opportunities is to co-locate housing, TOD, and transportation together. It comes with technical assistance. We've won another $1 million grant to bring in consultants that will help us parse out opportunities like public-private partnerships, and others. A key benefit of this is access to low-cost funding for development. This is really important to developers as they consider building housing, and we're talking about Treasury rate funding available through the Build America Bureau through 3 programs, TIFIA, RIF, and private activity bonds. So Brightline has leveraged private activity bonds. The TIFIA criteria has been updated by USDOT recently to include transit-oriented development, and their potential to reimburse federal has gone from 50% to upwards of 70%, depending on the criteria again. And then the program talks about accelerated delivery. NEPA laws haven't changed, so I don't know what that means necessarily. Next step is to establish the accelerator office with the Tampa Bay partnership. Council approved unanimously the agreement to do so. Council had previously approved the grant for the same. We're in the process of selecting a consultant, and Whit and Dr. Wong have been gracious enough to provide guidance. The partnership will be a voting member as well. And then early next year, we'll convene regional partners, establish governance, and then establish a regional vision. That regional vision is really critical. And then we'll bring in technical assistance to understand what our opportunities are relative to the assets and our needs, and then move towards projects. What can this body do? Advocate for this, recognize the opportunity, engage in the process of the accelerator. That would mean a little bit of staff time initially, and there will be something of interest. We believe anyways, we wouldn't be pursuing this otherwise. We look forward to your participation to realize this vision. Before I pass it along to Bamitra real quick, I'd like to highlight that we operate as an MSA. We depend on each other with our respective priorities. And certainly there are differences, but on a state and a federal level, we don't get measured or we don't influence as an MSA because we have 3 different MPOs. So Hillsborough County, for example, gets measured against a Rochester, New York, rather than a Denver or a Seattle. And for that reason, and a few others, I know Mayor Castor and the administration supports a regional MPO. There are certainly differences of opinion. We'll work through those. And then it will be what it is. But yesterday at council, we also heard that the process, council wanted to be updated on a quarterly basis, but clearly they made their feelings known on that. But I just wanted to share that we look forward to the process moving forward of forming a regional MPO. And Bamitra, before I bring you in for a couple of things, I just wanted to share the opportunity here is bipartisan support at the federal level. This is part of current administration's plans and the next administration plan. Our scale, the scale of our challenges relative to housing and transportation is big, and it requires big action. Bigger action like mega grants and things like that are better served through regional entities that leverage our 3.5 million population plus. And there's an opportunity to bundle housing, TOD, and mobility all in the same project or in the same vision, and be competitive with our peers and foster, in Tampa's case, less sprawl and more mobility options. Bamitra, do you want to add anything?
Good morning. What I would share is from the business community's perspective, our region is in a really good shape in that we are having to manage growth. There's a lot of things that we're very proud about in the region that we're able to do. We can't do that if that growth gets choked because of all of our traffic challenges. We feel like this office is an opportunity to do that. Obviously, we represent regional employers throughout the region that represent about 120,000 jobs in the region. So not just city of Tampa. The business community is every day trying to figure out how to retain employees, maintain employees, and recruit new ones to come. And the biggest thing that we hear is obstacles to that is traffic and housing. And we feel like we have to take a regional approach to do that. So this is something that not only for the RRAs, the business community, excited to be a part of, but also for the regional MPO, they're open to that, going through that process to see how we can continue to grow and not choke that growth because of our housing and congestion challenges.
I appreciate those comments, and I'd certainly share your thoughts about what our businesses are looking for. They don't see the county lines and city lines and the politics that goes on between communities. They really see a region and providing opportunity for growth and jobs and for all of us. So I think that's something that we have to always remember.
Yeah, most of our largest employers, they've got team members all over the region. They have locations all over the region. And so what they're looking for is for the region to work cohesively. And as Vic mentioned, we put out our competitiveness report. There, we track about 10 plus indicators on transportation and infrastructure alone. We're in the bottom quartile of those 20 cities in 8 of those 10 indicators. And it's something that we'd like to get better about.
I always remember the economic department at USF telling us that this is one of the largest growing regions in the country and can be one of the most powerful regions in the country if the provincial attitudes don't prevail. In other words, if we come together as a group, we clearly have to represent our individual communities, but within the perspective of that larger area. And so anyway, that was the challenge. Yeah, so thank you. Appreciate your presentation this morning. Sorry we didn't give you as much time.
Of course, no worries.
The last thing we have is looking at the calendar and turn it all the way on the back page. You can see the planned meetings that we have, which is a normal scope of work. We're adding these additional meetings in there and we're going to add them to the list to be approved. But having said that, we're not necessarily meeting all of these times. We want to make sure that they're on your calendars. And we'll talk about, I'm assuming that the February 28th meeting is likely to occur. I think so. Okay, so we're probably, as you look at this, at the February meeting, we'll talk about those additional March meetings at that meeting, if we're still going to need them. But for now, we're approving this schedule, which includes the options for the additional meeting.
And the rationale for this is that as a result of the last TMA meeting in September, there was a general sense that we're entering a phase where we're going to be working on, now that you've approved the scope of work, a lot of information and details going to be coming back at you. We probably won't need these additional meetings earlier in the year, but as we get into the consultant selection and approval, we will need additional meetings. So that was why that was put in there. And part of it is to breed a little more collegiality and familiarity and a culture of working together.
And topics that may be added along the way that we need to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. I think anything else?
I think we need an action to approve the moving date.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Got a motion for
Thank you.
approval.
Any second for the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody. Yes, did you have something?
I'll be exceptionally brief. In April, we informed this body that the 3 MPOs were going to work together on a grant application to improve our respective prioritization processes, make them more transparent. We learned this week that we won a grant from the Federal Highway Administration for over $1 million. Hillsborough TPO will take the lead, working very closely with staff in Pasco and Pinellas. We have a welcome webinar mid-January. Look to get that contract executed later in 2025.
Thank you. Great job. Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody. And then have another group coming in. So whoever's leaving probably ought to scoot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the next meeting.